Good morning, everyone. This is Jeffy Kennedy, author of Epic Fantasy Romance. I'm here with my first cup of coffee. Delicious. Today is Monday, March 3rd. Here we are in March. And if you're on video, you will see that we have the putty companion on the desk here. He is not satisfied. He wanted to be out of the room. He wanted to be in the room. He did not want my door closed. He's also annoyed. He's throwing annoyed looks at the guys out there working on the casita. You would think he would know by now. Sunday was a nice, quiet day, but they're out there working today. They're doing the stucco. Windows and doors are on. They're doing the stucco. Uh, it, Insulation's all in. It's no pause. So Killian loves to drink out of my water glass, as do all cats. It's a cat thing. But his problem is he loves to use his paws, and he will reach out and knock my glass over. He will pull things over. Um, yeah, so he can drink out of my glass. I've given that up, but he knows he's not supposed to use his paws on it. So that's the no pause. We're learning that, right? Yes. Uh, so yeah, things are proceeding apace here at Casa Kennedy and Casita Kennedy. So that's good. And making good progress on the book. I had a very social weekend. Who even am I? Um, Friday I finished working right as Dorinda Jones arrived. She came up here and we went to see a movie in the movie theater. I know, it's like a big deal for me. We went to see My Dead Friend Zoe, which was good. It was well done and very interesting. And then I got to spend time afterwards um, breaking down what we thought didn't work about the story. Um, it was a simple story, and I think it did something. We've been having ongoing conversations about this, like what is a story trying to do, right? Because the other thing that we did this weekend, and the reason that Dorinda came up, was we had a gathering at my house of a bunch of local-ish writers. Obviously, Dorinda came a ways. Bella Roth was going to come a ways, but she got sick, unfortunately. She's down in El Paso. But Minerva Spencer came down from Taos, and Jim Sorensen came up from Albuquerque, as did Ursula Vernon and Diana Rollins. And so there were six of us, and we had just a great conversation. What I'm hoping to do is have a monthly meeting of probably just this small group, just so that we can have conversations about the professional challenges that we face. There are a few people that are interested in coming and couldn't come to this one, but we'll see. We'll see. Uh, Ursula referred to one thing we were talking about. She said, "This is a my diamond shoes are too tight problem," which I think is better than a champagne problem. Because one thing, and I brought it up here a number of times, when you reach a certain point in your career, you are the problems that you have are not the problems that people early in the career have. And they are the problems that people early in their career would love to have, which is why it's yes, you want the diamond shoes, and we're happy to have the diamond shoes, but sometimes the diamond shoes are too tight, and you have to find a way um, to adjust them and talk to other people who have been wearing diamond shoes and can say, yeah, this is how I adjusted the straps. So, I got a slightly different size or something. Um, yeah, so it was a great conversation. We had a really good time. I put out food, and we well, let's see. The last person to leave was Minerva, and she didn't leave until like 3:30. Um, and she got to my house at 10. And it was kind of funny because I woke up Saturday morning after staying up late talking with Dorinda, and I thought, my house is dirty because I planned this foolishly for the end of my 2-week cleaning cycle. So I had to pick up my house, and I didn't have any food or beverage. And it was like, I guess I need to get my shit together. It's funny because I used to plan for these things so far in advance. So I can't tell if it's healthy or jaded or whatever. I mean, I pulled it off, it came off fine. There was a very funny point at which we determined that all five of them were talking about having ADHD, and they were talking about how that affects them. And I was like, wait, am I the only person in this room who does not have ADHD? And Ursula pointed at me and went, neurotypical, which was funny. But then Ursula is like, and it's not a coincidence that you are the person who organized this and got us together. So I guess that's what us neurotypicals do. We just hang out and organize things for. Well, it was great. I made everybody come to me, and it was just a terrific conversation. Such exactly what I wanted. Really smart writers, very experienced, and even Minerva Spencer, she who doesn't like anybody. She's funny. She's very antisocial. She has like 3 numbers in her cell phone, which is like her mother, her husband, and me. This tells you something. But she was like, I had fun. She said that in a tone of surprise several times. So, and she was the one who was really pushing me to organize this. So I was happy about that. But we ended up having this conversation about what is a story trying to do? And what are we trying to do as creators? And it's interesting don't step on the keyboard, please. I think he's not blocking your camera, but he's blocking my screen. There you go. Goodbye. Thank you. Yeah, so like in My Dead Friend Zoe, and it's about, it is an agenda movie. It was written by this guy in honor of 2 of his platoon mates who served in Afghanistan who came home and committed suicide. And so it's an emotional movie. It was very well acted, very well put together. But the story was very straightforward. So, and that was one thing that Dorinda and I were kind of complaining about or analyzing, was the solution to the conflict was the obvious solution to the conflict, to which there was simply no obstacle. I mean, it was like, at the end, they're all like, well, here's the solution to the problem. And it's like, yeah, it was the obvious solution to the problem all along. And there was no reason why any of the characters had a reason not to go with that solution, right? One thing we talk about, especially in romance, which is more character driven and depends on character transformation, we talk about how, in order to have true love, in order to make the romance work, that one or both of the characters have to make a sacrifice. They have to make some kind of change. They have to give up an incorrect belief, a false belief, or they have to. Sorry, I'm going back to Ming Lee and my conversation with her. I mentioned this several weeks ago on the podcast, but it was one of the few times I've encountered somebody in real life who will come out and say what their false belief is. Because she said extroverts do better in life, and I was like, no, there's no evidence for that. And I already talked about this, but we got into a long conversation about it, and I said it's a false belief, and Jim was like, well, maybe you don't agree with it, and I'm like, no, that's patently false. There is zero evidence to believe that extroverts do better in life. And I asked Ming Li, like, where did you get that idea? And she said, well, I guess I was told that, because she's an introvert, and that she needed to be an extrovert because she would do better in life. Which feels like she was born in China, and it feels like a very Chinese tiger parent kind of thing to say, extroverts do better in life. False belief. We have to give up our false beliefs. We have to make sacrifices. It makes for a good story. There's a push in certain parts of romance to talk about things, or I'm sorry, I'm crossing my neurons, um, for there to be no third act breakup. Uh, Basically, they want the romance to be happy all the way through. And, the thing is a lot of, if it's a romance, you the conflict there's conflict that prevents the romance from making it, and for them it's like a low stress thing to have there not be that conflict, and there's a place for it. That's fine if that's what people want and readers want and writers want to write it, but not everyone is going to do that. So this movie was interesting in that there was no reason uh, for the solution not to simply be the solution to the story. But that wasn't what the story was trying to do. They were trying to talk about it was an agenda heavy story. It was, here's trauma from war, and this is what happens. Dorinda was disappointed because she had thought there was going to be this plot twist, because the premise of the story, and you could get this off of the IMDb or whatever, is that this woman comes home from serving in Afghanistan and she's got PTSD, and her dead friend Zoe, that's the title of the movie, is hanging out with her and talking to her. And Dorinda had thought, like, by the end that they were going to be switched and all this, which is a very Dorinda plot twist kind of thing to do. And Dorinda writes about ghosts a lot. But no, there was no twist, and the resolution was very easily achieved, both for the external plot, what she was facing with her family, and with her internal emotions. But the movie, they wanted to talk about suicide rates among vets, and so it was a good movie. It was well done for that, and we were, with the writers talking about those kinds of things, talking about the sort of the archetype idea of, like the classic science fiction and fantasy, where the protagonist would be essentially an avatar of the author, and like the adolescent boy fantasy avatar of what would happen, where the character would not change. And we were talking about like Conan the Barbarian. Conan the Barbarian has zero character arc. He starts in a place and he ends in a place, and everything is about Conan going out and doing heroic, adventurous things. But Conan has no particular angst that he is trying to solve, right? Uh, and we were talking about writers using established characters, and it was a really interesting conversation because there is such an avalanche of that now. There is the fan fiction that gets, and part of why this came up is there was a fan fiction called Manacled that was written off of Harry Potter characters. And I'm only explaining this for those of you who are like, yes, Jeffy, we know, because like Minerva Spencer did not know. She had never been exposed to Harry Potter. Those of us who are older generation, we would have had to deliberately seek out Harry Potter. We didn't grow up reading it like the younger people did. And she never sought it out. So she didn't know who the characters were. She had run across this online because she saw how many reviews. This fan fiction had gotten like over 100,000 reviews on Archive of Our Own, AO3. And it's basically a Malfoy, Hermione slash, I think he kidnaps her. I think that's why it's Manacled. At any rate, this book is no longer on AO3 because it got bought by a traditional publisher. And they filed off the serial numbers and are publishing this book. It's exactly the same arc as happened with 50 Shades of Grey, which had started out as Twilight fan fiction, only sexier. It was basically if Edward had been a BDSM dom, and thus 50 Shades of Grey was born. And when it was published by a traditional publisher, they filed out the serial numbers because you're not allowed to make money off of other people's work, right? And we were talking about, is it cheating? Is there anything wrong with taking someone else's characters, someone else's story, someone else's world, and writing essentially their story again? Maybe, I mean, there's layers of this, right? You could take their world and their characters and write a different story. That's where a lot of fan fiction comes from, is people feeling like, I wish the story had gone in a different direction, so I'm going to write how I think it should have gone. Um, which is, I don't know, it's interesting. And then we were talking about, well, what if it's, because I wouldn't do it. I've never written fan fiction, but I think, come from an era when it didn't occur to me to write fan fiction. Um, and I was pointing out that I wouldn't want to, because for me, part of why I write, part of why I'm a writer instead of a scientist, is because I want to make up my own worlds and stories and characters. And Minerva felt the same way. She was saying, well, isn't it creating your own characters? Um, you know, isn't that part of what we do? And it's like, well, so if you take someone else's characters, is that cheating? And we were talking about the prevalence of like taking Jane Austen characters, taking Sherlock Holmes. There's all these things, like you take uh, a Jane Austen character and make her be a detective. Is that cheating? Because you've got the world and the character. You don't have to come up with those. Then all you do is focus on the story. And it's like, well, I guess it depends on what you want to do. It's not illegal. Uh, yeah, it's an interesting question. And Jim, who loves to argue, was sort of pressing Minerva on this and saying, well, what about if you made Jesus be a character? Is it different if it's a historical figure? Because she writes historical romance. And he's like, would you put Napoleon in a story? And she said, well, I did once. And she said she did feel ever so slightly weird about it, but she thought it was different because he was a real person. So we got into this extended debate about that, and it was really interesting. Um, so I am closing in on 2 weeks away that I have to be done with my tip-in sheets, and I need to do over 2 inches a day to be done on time. So I really have to get cranking on that. I got my shipment of additional tip-in sheets, so that kind of changed my metrics. It ended up being like 83.5 inches of tip-in sheets to sign. So I need to get after that. I'm 30% through the revision. Feeling good about it. It's at over 100,000 words. And I'm hoping it'll go faster. Famous last words, right? But I'm hoping that it was mostly this early part that took the extensive revision, and I'm hoping that I will gain speed this week. We'll see what happens. Stay tuned. Come back here on Friday, and we'll just see how the week went. But cross your fingers for me for a faster revision rate and tip-in rate. I should just my mother was being snarky on Saturday morning when I said that I was having a writer gathering, and she said, shouldn't you all be writing more and gathering less? Which is actually not true, because a lot of us just are stuck in our houses by ourselves too much. But yeah, I do need to really focus and try to get some of this stuff done. So, on that note, I hope you all are getting done what you need to get done, and would love to hear your thoughts on, is it cheating to use someone else's characters? I will talk to you all on Friday. You all take care. Bye bye.